Welcome to Pick Me Up, I'm Scared, the podcast.
I'm your host, Madeline.
And I'm your co-host, Kenna.
Okay, so Kenna, today, tell me what you know about Grimes' ex-boyfriend.
Oh, Elon Musk.
Yes. Mr. Grimes.
Oh, geez. Okay, I know he's like a billionaire, one of the richest people in the world. Let's see. He is from South Africa, grew up very privileged. He owns, of course, Tesla, and they are our favorite driver of cars. No, Tesla drivers, oh, so good. No, just no offense to the Tesla drivers out there. Let's see what else. He tried to buy Twitter, and he just seems kind of like a turd.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like he's one of those people where everything I know about him is against my will, you know?
Yeah, it's like I don't really care to know. Every time I hear about him, it's just something that's just like, why do we live in this place? People are like, he is why we can't have nice things. He is one of the reasons why we can't have nice things.
Yes.
I remember this from Twitter. Remember when he was like, I could solve world hunger if they just presented me with a plan. And the World Health Organization, or some like world hunger ending organization, was like, you could literally pay us this amount of money that you saved on tax and we could solve world hunger. Here is our plan. And he was like, meh.
Yeah, exactly. He's just like kind of like a weird liar to me.
He's a troll.
He's a troll for sure. I think the wildest part though is, as much as I like don't want to know anything about him, whenever something does pop up, I'm always like intrigued a little bit. That's my fault. That's bad of me.
You're like, I just had to listen to the whole Joe Rogan episode where he
was
on it.
Like,
an ex-friend of mine was like, oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Oh, sorry. I just got too excited. An ex-friend of mine was like, you have to listen to Elon Musk on the Joe Rogan podcast. And they're like, he's so hot. And I was like, what? And then we ended up not being friends anymore. And this was a big red flag.
Yeah, it is a big red flag. Yeah. So like, what I was going to say is I feel like I would not seek out that episode, but if someone posted a clip of it to TikTok, I would watch the whole clip. You know what I mean? That's my level of interest. I feel like he just always pops up saying some weird shit. So I thought a fun game to start off our episode today, it'd be like a quiz, and you're always really good at those. So the quiz would be, who said it? Elon Musk or a villain from a popular movie? Are you down to play?
I'm very down. You know, I watch all the Marvel movies. You know,
I know. That you're so good at these. I think you're gonna do great. Okay, so let's get started. I'm gonna read a quote, and it's really simple. You just tell me if Elon Musk said it or if a villain from a popular movie said it. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Number 1. I am going to build a moat and fill it with candy. Kenna, who said this? Was it Elon Musk or was it a villain from a popular movie?
I'm going to go with Elon.
You are correct. It was Elon Musk in a tweet about Warren Buffett in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2. You and I both know the real power in this world ain't magic. It's money.
I'm going to go with a cartoon villain.
It was a cartoon villain, yes. It was Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Frog.
Oh.
Okay, number 3. This one's short but sweet. Nuke Mars.
I'm going to go with Elon.
That was Elon Musk. You're so good at these.
I've listened to a lot of Wait, Don't Tell Me.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right, number 4. I'm not an alien, but I used to be one.
Also going to go with Elon.
It is Elon, yes. In 2016, he said that. Okay, the next one, number 5. I am a god, you dull creature, and I shall not be bullied.
This one's really hard. I'm gonna go with Elon again.
Okay, this one's actually Loki from the Avengers.
I knew it.
It was hard to tell. It was hard to tell, right?
I'm just like, yeah, it just sounds like something Loki would say, and you know how I am, how obsessed I am with Loki.
Yes.
Like it got bad for a second. I'm not gonna say it got fan fiction bad because it might have.
Yeah, I mean, it might have.
We
I
don't
get why
know.
people like Loki as a character. He's like a likable character.
I just think it to me, he represents like to me why the system does not work.
Yeah.
And but I think that most people don't think about him that way. And I'm like, potentially he could be like a very great asset in the Marvel universe. But I can't go down that hole because this will be the whole entire podcast.
Okay, that's fine. We'll do like maybe our bonus episode. We could record one this week and it can be your theories about Marvel.
Oh my God.
I would
Don't
love
get me started. Don't get me started.
Okay, well, moving on to number 6. There are 11. Sorry, there are 11. Number 6.
Wow.
Everywhere I look, in fact, nothing but undeveloped, unevolved, barely cautious pond scum, totally convinced of their own superiority as they scurry about their short, pointless lives.
I'm going to go with cartoon villain.
It was not a cartoon villain, but it was close. It was Edgar the Bug from Men in Black. Remember when Edgar turns into a bug, you know?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God.
Water. Okay, number 7. You know my name, but who are you? Just another American who saw too many movies as a child.
Elon Musk?
Okay, that was actually Hans Gruber from Die Hard, but very easily could have been Elon Musk, yes.
Okay, I'm doing bad now.
No, I think you're doing pretty well still, actually. Okay, number 8. I would rather commit seppuku than fail, which is obviously ritual suicide by disembowelment with a sword.
Elon?
That was, in fact, Elon Musk, yes.
It just seems kind of like a what do you call it, a weeb thing to say?
Yeah, he's pretty like stereotypical nerdy white guy.
Yeah, that kind of gives me the vibe.
Yes. Okay, number 9. I'm building a cyborg dragon.
Elon Musk.
It is Elon Musk, yes. Okay, we're almost done. Number 10. When there's an evil dictator, that human is going to die. But for an AI, there will be no death. It will live forever. And then you have an immortal dictator from which we could never escape.
Elon?
That is Elon Musk, yes.
It's because isn't he into the whole like what's the thing called where you die and your consciousness is like uploaded?
Yes. He's totally into that shit. Totally. Okay, and the last one. I have all the characteristics of a human being: blood, flesh, skin, hair, but not a single clear, identifiable emotion except for greed and disgust.
I'm going to go with villain.
It is. It's Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. But I'm proud I got you on a couple. I'm very proud of myself.
You did.
So obviously today's episode is going to be about Grimes' ex-boyfriend, everyone's least favorite megalomaniac billionaire, Elon Musk.
Wow.
I know. A different kind of episode for us, I think. We've never done one on just one person before.
Yeah, I think though that like really though, like he takes up a lot of the media space. And it is very strange, like the rare time, like when I don't interact much on Twitter. I just like looking and seeing like the news or like there's some random people that I follow, but it's like there are so many Elon stans on Twitter. It's really strange to me. It's really strange.
Yeah, people really love him.
Yeah, and I personally, I mean, if you listen to our podcast, you know why. We don't get it.
No, we don't get it. I mean, I'm really tempted also to call him Alan Mask for the entire episode so I don't accidentally feed into his delusions of grandeur. Like, I don't want to say his name. But we'll see how petty I am as I proceed.
Oh, like Voldemort?
Yeah. Name him. He liked that too much.
We can just say Voldemort instead.
That might be too millennial of us. It might be too Hogwarts core.
That is very chuggy, and also we just, gotta say fuck J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, exactly. We can't speak her name either and fix this stuff.
Yeah, jeez.
Okay, well, starting off, if we want to know about Elon Musk, aka Alan Musk, aka Grimes' ex-boyfriend, we got to talk about his family, right?
Yeah, aren't they like emerald or diamond people?
Emerald, yeah. But a lot of stuff actually. There's like his family is pretty interesting in like a terrible way.
Ooh.
Yeah, so Alan Mask was born to parents Errol and May on June 28th in 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa. So his mother, May, she was born in Regina, Saskatchewan in Canada in 1948. And she had 4 siblings, and her parents were named Joshua and Wynne Haldeman. And they had a really successful chiropractic business, and they traveled around a lot. And May said that as a kid, her family would roam around the Kalahari Desert looking for a fabled lost city, and that her parents would make the kids sleep in sleeping bags with like the sleeping bag pulled over their heads so that hyenas wouldn't eat their faces while they slept.
Whoa.
Yes.
Not gonna tell my kids that when camping.
Yeah. So real interesting family. And at age 15, May started a modeling career in Pretoria and Johannesburg in South Africa. So this would have been the year 1963. Now, South Africa in the 1960s was an interesting place. And to really dive into it, I think we have to take a detour here into South Africa's history. So South Africa has a really interesting history. In the 4th century CE, migrants from the north came to South Africa and settled there alongside the indigenous San and Khoi people. After that, in 1480, a Portuguese explorer became the first European to travel all around the southern tip of Africa. And a few years later, another Portuguese explorer, Vasco da Gama, landed on the KwaZulu-Natal coast, which is just like the southern tip. And anyone who studied colonization at all like knows that once Europeans start showing up somewhere, they don't stop and things get bad fast, right? So
yeah.
By 1652, this guy like Jan van Riebeeck, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, obviously, but he is a very Flemish-looking name. He was founding the Cape Colony at Table Bay on behalf of the Dutch East India Company down there in South Africa. Like he got there and he was like, we got to set this up. So the Dutch East India Company was founded in 1602, and they had this goal of trading in India, which is where Europe at the time got most of its cotton and silk. In the early 1600s, the company became the first ever listed on the stock exchange, and it was this really successful worldwide multinational company. And it had a lot of power. Like, it could wage war, it could take and execute prisoners, it could coin money, it could negotiate treaties, it could establish colonies. And it did this all like a lot, like really in horrifying ways. So in 1602, the Dutch were annoyed that the Portuguese were spending so much time in the spice trade, and they wanted in on the action. So in 1649, a recommendation was made to the directors of the Dutch East India Company to establish like a refreshment station in South Africa to make it easier for ships passing through. So Table Bay, an area of South Africa known for having like fertile ground, was chosen as the site for this. And in addition to being able to grow fresh fruits and vegetables, the indigenous people there were also noted as being really friendly and willing to like share or help. So obviously, whenever indigenous people are viewed as friendly in colonization records, it just means like the white people are going to be extra fucking horrible to them, right? So that's exactly what happened here when they kind of founded this refreshment station in South Africa. So within 4 years of Van Riebeeck's, whatever his name is, his arrival, war had broken out between the native Khoi people and the Dutch. And the Dutch had stolen all of the natives' land and forced them into these less fertile areas of the region where they couldn't survive. And the Khoi fought back. And this war kind of turned this refreshment station into a proper colony by European standards. Like, obviously, it was colonization from the start, but the Europeans had different standards for what a proper colony could and couldn't do. And with this, the Cape developed into a slave-based economy, importing enslaved people mostly from East Asia and forcing them to labor for their white masters, which established a racial hierarchical like social order in the region. So European white people became the masters, and the indigenous population was either horrifically murdered or subjugated to the level of like a slave servant class alongside the East Asian population. So by the late 1700s, the Dutch were starting to lose their status as like the global colonial power they had been. And in 1795, the British seized Cape Colony from the Netherlands. Then in 1803, it was returned to the Dutch for a little bit, and then ultimately it ended up back under British control in 1806. So after this happens, an important figure kind of emerges in South Africa, who's Shaka Zulu. Have you ever heard of Shaka Zulu?
No.
Okay, so he's a cool figure. He was born in 1787. His father was like a minor chief at a Zulu-speaking clan in the area that we now know of as South Africa, right? And his mother was the daughter of the chief of a rival clan. So this was like really shocking at the time. Like they're from different clans. It's like Romeo and Juliet kind of, right? And the pressure on his parents eventually caused them to separate. They were like, we can't do this anymore. Both of our clans are really mad. So his mother and him were exiled from his father's clan, and then they tried to return to her clan, but they were really badly shunned there. So Shaka was harassed a lot and never really given a proper place to call home. And when he became an adult, he went to go live with an entirely different clan called the Mthethwa, where he served as a warrior for 6 years. And the chief of this clan was really impressed by his courage and his strength, and by all accounts, he was like this great warrior. So when Shaka's father died in 1816, he returned to his father's clan to like claim the chief status that he was entitled to. And with the help from the Mthethwa's chief, who was like really impressed with his military skills, they like were able to successfully get him like the chieftain. So then when he came back into the clan, he was actually able to transform their military from just like a ceremonial force into this really powerful army, because this is what he was really good at. So in 1818, his mentor, who was like the chief from the Mthethwa, was assassinated by another clan, and Shaka was like, okay, we're getting revenge. So in 1820, he conquered the clan responsible for the murder, and then he was like, you know what? We're just going to combine every Zulu-speaking clan into one powerful empire. So he incorporated all the rival clans together in the South African area, and the Zulu Empire's population reached 250,000 people, making it the largest state in the history of Southern Africa at the time. And at its peak in 1827, the army for the Zulu Empire was over 50,000 soldiers. People say eventually Shaka kind of went like mad with power, and in 1828 he was assassinated by his two half-brothers, and control of the Zulu Empire ultimately went to one of them. By 1877, though, Lord Carnarvon, he's the Secretary of State for the colonies in England or wherever, he wanted to extend British imperial influence in South Africa. So he appointed this guy named Sir Bartle Frere as British High Commissioner to create a federation of British colonies and Boer republics, which we'll talk about the Boers in a little bit, but just different white people, basically. And in order to do this, Frere would have to gain control over the Zulu Empire. So this led to war breaking out in January of 1879, and the Zulu warriors were like really good. They were highly skilled, but eventually they were defeated by the British, who just had more weaponry. And then Zululand was divided into different autonomous areas. And in 1887, Zululand, which was like the area of the Zulu Empire before, was officially declared British territory and formally like annexed into the area that was then called Natal or Natal. I'm not sure which one, but it was, along the South African coast, and this happened 10 years later. Now, while this war had been happening, a few other changes were also going on in South Africa. So first of all, in 1856, the area that we were just talking about, it formally separated from the Cape Colony. Then from 1860 to 1911, like thousands of laborers and traders came to South Africa from India. And then in 1867, diamonds were discovered in South Africa. And this kind of led to this diamond rush there, which might explain why you were wondering if Elon Musk's parents were involved in emeralds or diamonds, because both are definitely like a South Africa thing. So basically, a bunch of miners and diggers, most of whom were European or of European descent, started trashing local areas of South Africa as much as possible, just looking for diamonds. And the popular diamond traders called the De Beers, right? They got their start there in South Africa in 1871. You've heard of them, right?
Oh, yeah, the commercials.
Right, yeah, we see their commercials. This is where they started in this really horrific colonization thing. So this one digger who was in the diamond rush explained that 1871 kind of went like this. The four great mines, New Rush, Du Toitspan, Bultfontein, and Old De Beers, were roughly circular in shape, and claim holders erected their dwellings as close to the mines as possible. And traders, storekeepers, and publicans, I'm not sure what that is, but that's what he said, put up their buildings in any vacant spot. Thus, each mining camp was composed of a central group of workings surrounded by a ring of shacks, shanties, huts, and shelters constructed in any material that would keep off the rain or the scorching heat of the sun. So later that year, British colonial commissioners arrived at the site of the diamond rush, and they were like, yeah, we got to get this under British control fast. So they renamed the area Kimberley, and it became a formal municipality in 1877. Then in the mid 1880s, gold was discovered in another region of South Africa called Transvaal, and this caused a gold rush to emerge there. So this was all centered around the area that's present day Johannesburg mostly. And by 1899, the gold industry was booming there, and it had over 100,000 people working in the gold mines. And most of these workers were Black migrant workers. To be profitable, gold mining in the region had to be really intense, like really deep levels, lots of machinery, which meant it needed a lot of capital and technology within the system of capitalism that existed there, right? So 100 companies in the area were arranged into 9 holding companies that worked to reduce competition over labor. So much for the free market. So what happened here was that white immigrant miners won relatively high wages within the system, and Black migrants from throughout Southern Africa, especially from present-day Mozambique, earned really low pay, around 1/9 the wage of the white workers, and they were housed in compounds, which led to them being more strictly controlled than the white miners were. So there was this other group in South Africa at the time, which we mentioned for a second a little bit ago, called the Boers, who were descendants of Dutch, German, and French colonists who arrived in the area closer to 1652. So they had been there a while, and they fought a lot with the British forces in the area. So it's more like white on white crime. And the Boers weren't like innocent people in all of this. One of the reasons they hated the British so much is that in 1834, the British were like, we're going to abolish slavery. But also, like, the British abolished slavery, but then just had horrific, fucked up, highly racialized labor practices that were still not great. So they're both kind of bad guys fighting each other. But still, the Boers were like, oh no, we're the white people who are superior to indigenous people because God said so. So we should get to enslave them. Like, how could you do this to me? And it was this like colonial power mass that emerged, basically. And the Boers kept moving around, trying to establish their own independent states, free of British rule, all around the Transvaal. And they both fought over it a couple times. Also, both sides using extensive Black fighters on their behalf, which is like super gross. And eventually the Transvaal was made a self-governing colony of the British Empire because, there was a bunch of gold there, and it was super fucking important to the British Empire because of that. And that's just how colonization works. So by 1910, the Union of South Africa was created via a constitutional convention and an act of the British Parliament. And it was like a new state, and it was forged via those mining practices that had happened in the region. So the formation of the region ensured that white settler minorities would prevail over the Black majority. To ensure this, though, Black societies had to be policed and taxed more aggressively. And the new constitution excluded Black people from having like any political power at all. And all during this time, we still see obviously amazing acts of Black resistance. There were Black trade unions being formed. In February of 1920, more than 70,000 African gold miners went on strike for a week in pursuit of better wages. There were protests, there were freedom fighters working there all the time. However, despite these acts of Black resistance, there was a huge amount of structured segregation that persisted in South Africa. White people called it the native question, right? That's what we did here in the United States too. And Black people were like subjected to this thing called retribalization in order to highlight their ethnic differences and hopefully prevent them from banding together. So laws were passed to racially separate people in industrial, territorial, administrative, and residential spheres. The 1911 Mines and Works Act and its 1926 successor reserved certain jobs in mining and the railways for white workers only. The Natives Land Act of 1913 defined less than 1/10 of South Africa as Black reserves, like kind of how we dealt with native reservations here in the US, and prohibited any purchase or lease of land by Black people outside of those reserves. The Native Urban Areas Act of 1923 segregated urban residential space and created influx controls to make it harder for Black people to access cities. The Representation of Natives Act of 1936 increased reserve areas and removed Black voters in South Africa from the common voting areas, and made it so that Black people had to vote separately and only had the power to elect 3 white representatives to the House of Assembly. So while all of this was happening, white power in the region was also increasing in nationalism. By 1931, the last vestiges of British legal authority were removed from South Africa, and 3 years later, South African Parliament declared the country was its own sovereign, independent state. So in 1948, a nationalist party in South Africa was claiming that the government's weakness in the region was threatening their white supremacy. And they released this statement being like, we need to do this thing we're calling apartheid, right? Like, cue the spooky music. And apartheid, obviously, was a program of tightened segregation and discrimination against Black people. And this party that presented this, the National Party, they ended up winning the general election by a narrow margin that year. And this is the era that we now know of as apartheid in South Africa. So even more intense segregationist practices were implemented following this. There were these grand apartheid laws, which kept Black people in designated spaces, but there were also these things called petty apartheid laws, which restricted like every single aspect of Black people's lives in South Africa. There were these pass laws, which prohibited Black people from entering urban areas without immediately finding a job. There were laws making it illegal for Black people to not be carrying this thing called a pass book at all times, which classified people who weren't white and had to be signed by white employers every single week, noting the workers' behavior. You couldn't travel from one town to another without showing one of these pass books, and sometimes the police would raid family homes in the middle of the night looking for them. Interracial marriage was also illegal. Black people couldn't operate businesses in white areas, and hospitals, beaches, and schools were all restricted by race. So in the 1950s, the African National Congress, which was the country's oldest Black political party, initiated a mass mobilization against all the racist laws, which was called the Defiance Campaign. And Black workers boycotted white businesses, they went on strike, they staged these nonviolent protests, all of which were obviously met with police violence and state brutality. And in 1960, South African police killed 69 peaceful protesters in Sharpeville, which sparked nationwide dissent and a wave of strikes. And this is where we see Nelson Mandela start to really rise up in organizing at the time there. In 1961, he was arrested for treason and later sentenced to life in prison for sabotage. And while all of these protests were happening in the 1950s, the government also declared a state of emergency as an excuse to implement even stricter apartheid laws. And this is the South Africa that Mae Musk entered in 1963 to be a model, which is just so wild to me. And if you've seen Mae Musk, she's still a model today. She's still alive today. And she is just a very thin, very white woman. So in 1963, Mae is living in South Africa and modeling in Pretoria and Johannesburg, working on runways and in photo shoots and in catalogs. And in 1969, she was even a finalist in the Miss South Africa beauty competition, which is just wild when you think about everything going on at the time. Like to have these white girls being called Miss South Africa in apartheid South Africa. It's just like really violent, right? And she's going to high school in South Africa at the same time. And this is when she meets Elon Musk. Okay, so Kenna, there's been some news about Elon Musk lately. Have you heard any of it?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, the recent he married his stepdaughter.
Yeah, he did. Yes. No, he didn't marry her. He had some babies with her.
Oh, yikes.
Really, really, really bad. Really, really creepy.
Yikes. Yeah. Yikes.
So this guy, he was born in 1946 in Pretoria, South Africa. He was born into this whole situation. His father was a white guy from South Africa. His mother was British. Errol was 2 years older than Mae. They went to the same high school, though. And in 1970, when she was 22 and he was 24, they got married. They had been high school sweethearts. And at this time that they got married, he was working as an engineering consultant and a real estate developer. And he ended up becoming so financially successful that he went on to own several mines and what's referred to as a natural resources infrastructure. So in 1971, the couple gave birth to their first child, who was our favorite Elon Musk, aka the future Grimes' ex-boyfriend, aka Elon Musk. And after that, they also gave birth to their son, Kimball, and a daughter named Tosca. So Errol's career during the 1970s was really taking off right after the time that Elon Musk was born. He owned a share of an emerald mine in Zambia. He owned a bunch of thoroughbred horses. He had a private yacht and a Cessna aircraft. He owned multiple homes, which were all described as posh. He vacationed to them on holidays regularly, places like Waterkloof, which was a fancy suburb of Pretoria that's 72% white and known as Pretoria's richest area. Today, the area has a high concentration of exclusive security estates that rank among the most sought after in South Africa, according to real estate people in the region. And, there's like all these golf estates and like, Mooikloof Heights and this place just called The Hills and Mooikloof Equestrian. There's just like a lot of really fancy private high security communities. And as author Ashley Vance wrote in Musk's biography, the family owned one of the biggest houses in Pretoria thanks to the success of Errol's engineering business, which included large projects such as office buildings, retail complexes, residential subdivisions, and even an Air Force base. So Errol Musk had become a millionaire before the age of 30. And one of Elon Musk's classmates during this time, Melanie Cheery, says, "We were really clueless as white South African teenagers, really clueless." She describes how they would rarely even see Black people in the neighborhood that they grew up in unless they were servants in white families' homes. And Errol said that his kids were always kind of asking questions about apartheid. Errol himself served in the Pretoria City Council in 1972, and Elon and his siblings would ask him questions about like why Black people couldn't go to restaurants or movie theaters or, be teachers. And Errol himself was part of an anti-apartheid progressive party. But that didn't change the fact that when asked about how his children got along with Black people, his response was, "Oh yeah, they got a good relationship with the domestic staff." And this is wild to me because it kind of reeks of that white liberal thing, right? Like Errol Musk theoretically opposes apartheid, but that doesn't stop him from having Black servants in his home and making money off of Black labor in his mines. So when asked about the Black freedom fighters fighting apartheid at the time, Errol says that he supported them, but, and this is a quote, "We were concerned about them putting off a bomb next to our house," which to me really sums up the issues with white liberalism. Supporting the liberation of marginalized and oppressed people as long as it doesn't inconvenience you. So while her husband was amassing riches off of emerald mines and real estate and natural resource infrastructure, whatever that is, May at this time was getting her bachelor's of science in dietetics, like dietitian kind of stuff, whatever that is.
Gotcha. I was thinking Dianetics, which is something completely different.
Yeah. That's the Scientology thing.
Yes.
Right. No. She was doing all the dietitian shit at the University of the Orange Free State in South Africa. By 1979, though, May and Errol were getting divorced. And also worth noting, this is the first year that divorce was legal in South Africa. So they'd probably been wanting this for a long time. May reports that Errol was physically, financially, and emotionally manipulative and abusive. And again, everyone always talks about how Errol is really an asshole and a creep. Around this time, too, Errol doesn't even have to work anymore, really. He's half retired, and he just spends all of his time traveling around and being this, rich jerk. Now, the thing about him being this rich jerk, this is something that Elon Musk really notices, too, even as a child. After the divorce, he and his brother lived with Errol and just kind of saw their moms on weekends, while his sister Tosca lived with May full time. And Elon's childhood in South Africa was still mostly spent in that classy, rich suburb called Waterkloof. And Elon describes his dad as being a terrible human being and says living with him was not a good idea. So basically, Errol is known for being a scandalous, weird, rich guy misogynist. He's always got these mistresses. He's always doing sketchy things with women. He even shot and killed 3 burglars who tried to break into his home and was really proud of it. On the
Whoa.
cheating, yeah, he's real if he was in the United States, he'd be real cowboy white guy, Fists in the air. So on the cheating, when he was talking about how he always had these mistresses and was a philanderer when he was married to May, he said, "I had a very pretty wife, but there were always prettier, younger girls." Creepy. Super
No.
creepy. So Errol, for his part, while Elon is "Yeah, my dad is a terrible human being," Errol is "Well, Elon is just a spoiled child. He is spoiled. So they do not have a good relationship. And even Elon's brother Kimball says, "I was the best child, and Elon was the hard child. Have you met Elon? He's a tough cookie. My dad and my mother always talk about how hard he was." So this is kind of Elon Musk's childhood. From 1971 to 1989, he's living in South Africa, going back and forth between his mother and his rich dad, who he hates, living in these wealthy areas while his dad is out shooting people and having sex with everybody. But in his childhood, Elon does super interested in computers, apparently. So at the age of 12, in 1983 or 84, he makes this simple little computer game called Blaster, and he manages to sell it to a computer magazine for $500. And like most kids who like computers, Elon is considered just like a total nerd by his peers. He's also said that he is on the autism spectrum. And even having a super, super rich dad like couldn't save him from the other kids. He was really badly bullied in school. He was beat up so bad once that he was hospitalized. And I get why people don't like Elon Musk, but like the bullying did actually seem very, very, very hardcore. Like, I'm going to go on record, you know, it's a controversial take, but I don't think kids should be hospitalizing each other. You know, that was pretty bad. So that one, definitely, we don't like Elon Musk, but he had some bullying trauma in his childhood for sure.
No kid deserves that.
No kid deserves that, no matter how fucking weird they are or what kind of asshole they grow up to be. Usually they're not an asshole yet. So throughout the 1980s, like even in his childhood, we see Elon Musk like proudly kind of training in the footsteps of his father, even though he says he hates them, to become this capitalist elite. Like there's this story about him, his brother, and his cousins hanging out in the 1980s, and they're all teenagers at this time. They're maybe 14 or 15. You know, this is two years after Elon Musk has sold the video game for $500. And they all get together and they melt down a bunch of chocolate and then shape them into eggs with molds and wrap them in foil. And this is around Easter time. So they go around to all their posh, rich neighbors in the neighborhood trying to sell these like chocolate Easter eggs, basically, for the equivalent of around 60 US cents at the time, which is like $1.62 today each. And the neighbors are like, that's way too much money for these little chocolate eggs. And then Elon and his cousins had this whole rehearsed pitch where they would say, buying from us means supporting young capitalists, as though that's like a really good thing. And it worked. Everybody in their rich neighborhood was like, oh, yes, we would love to support young capitalists. Take our money.
Oh my gosh, this makes so much sense, because if you think about the 80s, it's all like polo shirts, like yuppies, like Ronald Reagan, young Republicans, like
Yes.
it makes so much sense, because it was like, you know how like the 60s and 70s were like, ooh, hippie counterculture, and the 80s were like, fuck that. We
Yeah,
like
for sure.
consumer goods.
That's totally what happened here. And also what's interesting, because it's like, this is even like his dad was considered progressive in this environment. That's how conservative the environment was.
Wow.
Yeah. So, okay, that brings us to like 1989. May, his mom, is 42. She's not happy. Her ex-husband's a real asshole. You know, he was financially abusive when they were together. After they got divorced, he did his best to withhold as much money from her as possible. She's struggling to make ends meet, in her own words. Her son, Elon, is 18, just graduates high school, and he's really not wanting to do South Africa's compulsory military service. Like, they make everybody there, I think probably just the man at 18, signed up for the military, and he's like, I don't want to do that. And she's like, you know what we should do? We should all just get out of here. Let's get out of South Africa. Let's move back to Canada, where I'm from. Let's go to Toronto. So Elon, he's the oldest of the kids. The other two are a little younger, but the four of them all together get up. They move to Toronto in 1989. And Elon Musk's goal is to get to the United States, but he knows it's going to be easier to enter the United States through Canada. So he says at this time, he only had $2,500 to his name, which, you know, I didn't do the math, but in 1990, it goes a lot further. It's more money than I had to my name at 18, that's for sure. Whatever the case, though, in Toronto, May describes their time there as like really struggling. And this is a really interesting like depiction of these years to me. In one interview, she said, they were tough years, on my own with 3 young children and no income. I'd cry when they spilt milk because I didn't have the money to buy any more. And the young children thing's interesting to me because I'm pretty sure they were all teenagers at this time. They weren't super young. But, you know, whatever. She experienced a trauma. She escaped it. And during this time in Toronto, they were living in a small rent-controlled apartment. This is the part where it gets weird to me, with literally no furniture. And the reason why this is interesting to me is, like, May's parents, who lived in Canada too, they were pretty well off. They had the successful chiropractor practice. They were traveling all over the world. her ex-husband was pretty well off, right? But I also know society is awful to women and especially to single moms. So maybe everyone did just kind of like leave her to the wolves to fend for herself. But I'm surprised that she wouldn't have help from her family at least. But whatever,
I
that's the story.
I am actually not surprised because it seems like with especially like boomers and boomers parents, even Gen X and Gen X's parents, like their parents weren't as concerned about taking care of them. It seems like, I know this is like this might be a cliche, like the TikTok about like all Gen X are like latchkey kids and stuff like that. But it's like, people whose parents have money and they're really struggling, and they'd be like, you need to learn this on your own. And you're like, you couldn't just help them out in a bad spot. Like, I'm broke and I would help a loved one out in a bad spot. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I've been that in the past. Like, not that I'm broke now, but it's like, I have helped out. If someone was like, dang, I don't have any food for me and my kids, you'd be like, okay, like, if
right, right.
you're my relative, we're gonna make this work. Like, it blows my, but some people's families are like that.
Yeah, well, the account this time gets a little more interesting. So during this time, she ends up working 5 random little jobs, she says. She's still doing some modeling here and there. She's doing some random things, but her main job is working as a research officer for the University of Toronto. And during this time, too, she attended university to get her master's degree. And her mentality during this phase is really interesting. And you can really see how it rubs off on her kids. She takes this very bootstrap ideology and she says of this experience, children grow up knowing you work hard, and the harder you work, the better you do, and the luckier you get. Which is wild to me because the hardest working people I know are usually also the poorest, right? They work like warehouse jobs or waiting tables or they're in kitchens or they're doing construction and they're not being paid nearly as well as people like Elon Musk. But
I will say that the hardest jobs I've ever had, I've made the least, and the easiest jobs I've ever had, I've made the most.
agree, 100%. Like right now, I make the most money I've ever made in my life, and it's one of the easiest jobs I've ever had.
Same, same.
Right. But, whatever. May is living in a world of her own delusions, doing her best to raise these 3 teenagers. And her kids, for their part, they're also helping to bring money into the family apartment too. May says they had to be responsible for themselves because they had to help me. So May is all knee deep in her bootstrap ideology and starts doing some like really unhinged capitalist propaganda moves, in my opinion. She says, the first thing we did after the first salary I got was we got an inexpensive carpet, to put down because we didn't have chairs or anything. And this is pretty wild to me because the average cost to carpet a 600 square foot apartment, which would be a small apartment today, it would be between $1,000 and $4,500. And I know you can get furniture much cheaper than $1,000 from thrift shops and secondhand shops. So I'm like, okay, May, weird priority, weird move to me. And if that isn't strange enough, she also said the second thing we got was a computer for Elon, and he would sit on the floor at his computer. So to truly understand how wild this is, I have to express how absolutely expensive and uncommon it was to have a home computer during this time. In 1989, I was 3 years old. So my dad was not great with money. So despite growing up in a precarious financial circumstance, we were the first people on our block to have a home computer. And this was in 1996. So having a home computer in 1989 would have been so weird, like very uncommon. And I looked at the price that a computer would have been in 1989 and adjusted for inflation today, it would be over $4,000. So I don't know about you, but I don't know many poor people spending it was over $4,200 actually on a computer even now. Like the most I've ever spent is $1,000 on a computer and I had to put it on my credit card and I am middle class now. So this is just really interesting to me. It makes sense of the financial situation going on. And I'm just like, the second I think I understand it, I'm hit with something else. And I'm like, wait, what? And as the kids,
Yeah.
Oh no, you go.
Oh yeah, it's I definitely, when I have been like broke, have like not spent my money so great. And I can imagine like, if you're like, oh, I just want like my kid to succeed, I will, buy them whatever they need, like you want to do like what you can for your kids. But that is very strange that you wouldn't just buy, like, to me it's like you can just go to a thrift store and get a furniture, or you can pick up furniture off the street, which is very strange to me.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. There's this audio going around on TikTok right now that it's a problematic audio and I don't really like it, but it's basically like, your problem is not that you're poor. Your problem is that you're bad at being poor. And it's like this really like weird bootstrappy poor thing. But the audio is like all used by like middle class people renovating their houses. And it talks about how like if you got the will, you can get stuff and make it not shitty by refurbishing it all or something like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's hard. There is this, I will say, in times of my life where I was just like, I was not behaving, like, I was like, oh, that was weird how I was like, managing my life. I was so stressed out that I literally, I felt like I had like blinders on. And it, like, when you get really stressed out, you just don't make sound decisions. Like,
That's
I
a,
was,
that's a good point for sure.
um, so I have a little bit of compassion. However, I'm a big proponent of thrift store furniture.
Yes, same. I really I want to like May throughout all of this. Like she is a victim of abuse. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be really sympathetic to her, but she is also just like an interesting character. But that is a very compassionate viewpoint of May, and I like that. So I'm going to adopt that as mine as well. She's stressed out. She's doing weird things with money that don't quite make sense. So as her kids get older, her daughter Tosca starts working at this upscale grocery store, and Elon, meanwhile, is helped out by his least favorite person in life, his dad, Errol, who gets him a job at, this is like wild, Microsoft. Not bad
Whoa.
for a teenage job, right?
I mean, I mean, that's the least like your dad could do.
Yeah. So in 1990, and starts attending college. So he starts going to Queen's University in Ontario. And during the 2 years he went to school here, he cold called this guy, Peter Nicholson, who was a top executive at the Bank of Nova Scotia. And he was like, I want to meet with you. So Nicholson met with him because he was so impressed by the cold call. This is one of those things like boomers tell us to just do, but you're like, you can't just do this anymore. Everyone has caller ID. It doesn't work. But whatever, it worked for Musk. And Nicholson gave him a summer internship at the bank, earning 14 Canadian dollars per hour, or around $10.83 in US dollars in 1990, which today would be the equivalent of around 24 bucks an hour, which is pretty good. So I think more than I made when I was in college. So 2 years later, he transfers out of Canada and he transfers to the University of Pennsylvania, where he completes a bachelor's degree in physics and economics. And Elon says, okay, this is also where things start. I'm like, what is going on with your money situation? He says he graduated with $100,000 in student loan debt. But I don't know how true this is because I went to a private art school in San Francisco 10 years after him and only graduated with $30,000 in debt. I should not have had to do it. But like Canada, college is heavily subsidized, very, very cheap. And University of Pennsylvania, because I was so perplexed by this $100,000 like thing, I looked it up and I'm not sure exactly how truthful he's being because the schools that he went to, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, in 1995, tuition was a little under $18,000 per year. And he only did 2 years worth of his education there. So ostensibly, that would make his tuition $36,000 in total. So I'm not sure how he had $100,000 in student loans like he claims on Twitter. And sources say that he actually paid for his living expenses during college by throwing house parties and charging a cover fee of $5 per person. Like one time his mom even came down to help work the door at one of these parties. They were really huge parties. So again, not sure how he would have ended up with $100,000 in student loan debt after having a summer job before transferring working at Microsoft, after having this internship making $24 an hour, attending a school where his tuition in total would have been $36,000, and he was paying for his rent and more with this basically, it was a 10-bedroom frat house that he rented out with this guy, Adio Resi, and they turned it into a complete nightclub and did this regularly. So,
well, I mean, I am actually impressed with that in college because that's like a good idea.
It's totally a good idea. But he's boy bossing. He's boy bossing from the jump. He's baby capitalist. He's everything.
He loves boy bossing.
He's boy bossing. He truly is. So in 1994, before graduating, he also did 2 internships in Silicon Valley. So again, $100,000 just doing, I'm like, okay. One was at an energy storage startup called Pinnacle Research Institute, and the other was at a Palo Alto startup called Rocket Science Games. And this gets us to 1995, when he's graduated college and he moves to California to start working on a graduate degree in physics at Stanford. But after 2 days, this is like one of those stories people love to tell that's just like a capitalist fucking wet dream. After 2 days, Elon Musk leaves Stanford and he's like, college is worthless. The internet is going to do more for people than physics ever will. And you can just feel all the proto boy bosses just like, oh my God, yes, right? So later that year, he and his brother worked together to start this business called Zip2, which is basically a software company for media and e-commerce businesses, kind of like a B2B thing, but it's like pretty similar to, honestly, just like the yellow pages on the internet. So this same year, his dad, Errol, marries his second wife, Heidi Marie, a widow and mother of 3, Jack, Harry, and Jana. And they had 2 daughters together, Alexandra Ali Musk and Asha Rose Musk. And this is the relationship that's been making the headlines recently because that stepdaughter that he ended up with, Jana, she was just 4 when he married her mom and was, everybody said, the only parental father figure that she ever knew. And he's like, oh, she didn't really live here all the time. And yes, in 2018, he fathered a child with Jana when she was 30 years old and he was 72. And just this month, July of 2022, they had their second child together. And Errol is like, it's cool, man. The only thing we're on Earth for is to reproduce.
Ew.
I know, he's creepy. So as disgusted as Elon was with his dad at this time, 1995, it did not stop him from taking dad's money to finance that Zip2 company he started with his brother. Now, Elon today claims that he started this company with no funding, but Errol very publicly disagrees. By his own accounts, he financed Zip2 completely, like from his emerald mining money, amongst other places. And I think this is a really good place to stop and take a little detour into that whole emerald mine thing. So, Kenna, you have heard the story about his parents being in like the gem business, right? Everybody's heard this kind of story. And the wildest thing to me is Elon Musk is like, this never happened. Oh my God, why do people say this happened? But Elon Musk is very vocal about this. So Elon Musk is like, look, in the mid-1980s, he's a rich guy now. Remember, he's mostly retired. He's traveling around. He's got millions and millions of dollars. So he and a friend are like, let's go to England to sell this airplane. You know, just like rich guy shit. I don't know. So on their way to England, Errol is notified that there's like a complication with the flight plan. There's like a religious holiday. It's this huge thing. They can't fly into this place they were going to fly. So instead, they head back to this area called Lake Tanganyika. And there, they're like stopping so they can like refigure out their plan to get, you know, to England. And they run into this group of Italians who, as luck would have it, were looking to buy an airplane. Because it's just like rich people just get whatever they want all the time, I'm convinced. So Errol's like, sick, I got this airplane, just buy it off of me. And the whole situation is so wild to me that this is just like how rich people live their lives. But whatever, it apparently is. And the Italian guy just gives Errol 80,000 pounds, like in cash, 1980s money, which would be around 200,000 US dollars today. So Errol's standing there with this almost $250,000 in cash. And the Italian guys are like, wait, do you have any interest in buying half of an emerald mine for $100,000? And Errol, in his own words, replies, oh, all right. So for the next 6 years, Errol's wild. This is a wild ass character. He's raking in the emeralds. Like the way he gets paid out is they just give him emeralds. So Errol employs a cutter in Johannesburg and sold the stones like wherever his travels took him, either as an engineer, which he was still kind of doing, or on family holidays. And you know who helped him deal these emeralds? Elon Musk, his kid. So at age 16, Elon Musk is tasked by his father with selling some emeralds. They travel to New York, and Elon and his brother Kimball decide while their dad's sleeping that they are going to sell these emeralds to Tiffany & Co. on Fifth Avenue. So Errol describes it like this. They just walked into Tiffany's and said, do you want to buy some emeralds? And they sold 2 emeralds, one for $800 and one for $1,200. A few days later, the family goes back into Tiffany's and they see that that $800 emerald was now set in a ring and selling for $24,000. And of course, they're rich as shit. So Errol's not upset that his son's lost the money. He's like, this is a learning opportunity for you. Like, look, see, you learned the value of things. And in his own words, the reason they're not worried is this is how he describes his wealth, okay? He says, we were very wealthy. We had so much money at times we couldn't even close our safe. There'd still be all these notes sticking out, and we'd sort of pull them out and put them in our pockets. So these emeralds were coming from Zambia. And remember, these are the emeralds in the mine that Elon Musk today claims does not exist, but that Errol is very vocal about and has details about, and even says, like, not only does Elon know it existed, he helped me sell the gems. So in Zambia, where the emeralds were coming from, it's located kind of in like South Central Africa, so not like South Africa proper, but they also dealt with like apartheid adjacent issues as well, just due to the proximity to South Africa and the history of colonization there. So journalist Helen Epstein writes about this, what it was like in the 1950s there. So in the 1950s, she explains, 2% of Zambia's 3.5 million people were white, but they controlled everything in a system resembling apartheid. In the lucrative copper mines, blacks were barred from management jobs and had separate toilets and changing facilities. In the towns, blacks lived in separate neighborhoods, had separate cinemas, were banned from white areas after 5 p.m. without a pass, were forbidden to ride in the front passenger seat of a car driven by a white woman, and could not enter white shops but had to make purchases through a hatch in the wall. So this other guy, Andrew Sardonis, describes a mining town in the region in 1950 like this. The town had 2 shopping centers set a couple of miles apart. Blacks were not allowed to go inside a shop in the first-class shopping center. They could buy from there if they wanted something specific, but they were served from the backyard through a hatch in the wall. Some years later, a black friend, Robinson Puta, paid for a bed at the hatch and refused to go inside to collect it. He insisted that it be given to him through the hatch, but that was in the late 1950s. Sardonis explained that each town was subdivided into black and white areas separated by huge tracts of no man's land. Black people weren't allowed to build their own houses. Windowless shacks built by mining companies where they weren't even like allowed to grow their own food to try to make survival easier. Zambia had been part of the British Empire, and therefore it shared characteristics with the area traditionally known as South Africa today. It was settled heavily by Europeans, and black Africans there were heavily oppressed as a result of that colonization. Zambia became independent in 1964, and it heavily supported anti-apartheid action in South Africa following its independence. But it still struggled with the lingering effects of colonization in the country itself. So Zambia entered the 1980s buying emerald mines there in a state of kind of like economic crisis. By 1980, real per capita income was half of what it had been in 1974 there. And by 1984, it had dropped to just a third of what it had been in 1974. And in the late 1970s, Zambia had begun to borrow money from the West, realigning the state towards foreign capital and regional settler regimes of mining. As Marcia M. Burdett explains in The Mines, Class Power, and Foreign Policy in Zambia, Zambia's industry was part of an international system of production and of commodities. As a consequence, its own domestic patterns of class power reflect international interests as well as internal pressures. So in short, white mine owners like Elon Musk were still in a position of control over the local in the region. Today, 20% of the world's comes from Zambia, and 40% of all mining there is done with illegal child labor, which means that there's a chance that Elon Musk's first company, Zip2, child labor in a country still at the rule of colonialism, only now from a capitalist business perspective rather than direct. So this kind of little detour gets us back to Elon, right? So we've got Elon and his brother Kimball, and they're founding Zip2 with dad's money. But their dad is like, yeah, you definitely got it. I paid for that all. And Elon is claiming we had no funding to help start this, but he couldn't afford an apartment. Instead, he rented a small office space and slept on the couch. He says that he and YMCA and shared a single computer from which they coded their website. And this is really where Elon Musk gets into that like bootstrap technology that he got from his mom. He says at this time, work hard every hour. If you do the simple math and say if somebody else is working 50 hours a week and you're working 100, you'll get twice as much done in the course of a year as the other company. And we know this isn't true, right?
No, productivity does not work that way.
Exactly. So this one article, it's on entrepreneur.com, which is a hilarious name for a website. Researchers have found that putting in all those extra hours of work, specifically more than 50 hours a week, which is interesting because that's what Elon Musk referenced, can end up being a waste of time from a productivity standpoint. Research shows that productivity drops immediately upon starting overtime and continues to drop until you hit 60 hours per week, 8 weeks in a row. At this point, your productivity is officially exactly the same as if you'd stuck with the 40-hour work weeks all 8 weeks to begin with. Also, a Stanford study found that when people worked more than per hour, just started to fall. So no, you're not more 100 hours a week than the guys working 50. So this is all bad advice we're getting from boy boss Elon Musk here. Elon Musk also says at this time, 8 Diet Cokes a day to stay awake. And he said, I got so freaking jacked that I seriously started to feel like I was losing my peripheral vision. And what we see here is this like romanticization of the myth of the American dream tied in with hustle culture. We're told that, you know, having a company after getting you an internship at Microsoft, nobody's saying that. We know that, right? But nobody's telling us that. Instead, we're being told that the Elon Musk story is that he worked 100 hours a week by jacking himself up on caffeine and couldn't afford his own, slept in his office, right? It's a totally different story that we're actually being fed. It's this myth at play telling you that you're not able to make your ends meet because you're a lazy piece of shit. When in reality, the answer is that the people who are having an easy time making ends meet now, they've just had rich parents all along. So
yeah, it's like the thing, like when I noticed, like when I was younger and I noticed friends who were young, like or younger, like buying houses, I was just like, oh, what's wrong with me? And every single person had their parents or grandparents buying them houses.
exactly. It's like, yeah, like I remember the first time I talked to somebody and they were like, oh, I should ask my mom to help me with my down payment. And I was like, what? Is that a thing? Do people do that? So anyway, around this time, Elon and Kimball, they're sleeping in the office. They're really proud of themselves for being these like work martyrs, despite it actually not adding anything to their productivity. And they said that they settled disagreements on business issues by literally wrestling with each other, which is just oh,
Sorry, these are just reminding me of like the TikToks where people are roasting the man entrepreneurs.
oh, I haven't seen them, but somebody at work told me to follow this really funny Instagram account that's entrepreneur spelled wrong, and it's like mocking all of those like boy boss accounts, and it kills me. It's so funny.
Oh my god.
But yeah, they literally wrestled, and I'm like, okay, this is very toxic tech, bro. Okay.
You must prove your dominance. Who is the alpha?
Okay. Also, though, a thing that surprised me is when you hear this story, they're saying, like, oh, we had one computer, we couldn't afford rent, we slept on a couch in the office, we showered at the YMCA. You're like, oh, it's just the two of you working really hard. Like, I've started a business with my friend in her living room. It's just the but then when you dig deeper, it was not just the two of them. There was actually a whole ass board of directors going on here. And they actually were like thwarting Elon Musk's company. And Elon Musk only had a 7% share of ownership. So I'm like, what is the truth with this Zip2 company? Like, Errol was probably a big investor, and he and his brother probably founded it, but got a lot of other people on board. It was not just the two of them.
Okay, now I'm wondering, okay, now I going back, I still have, you know, some compassions for Elon mom, but I feel like maybe the not having furniture thing was like maybe a thing to be like, your furniture is for soft people. You're not a soft boy, are you? Your furniture.
I mean, I like something connect between the financial reality and the financial fairy tale we're being presented. That's the thing I keep running into here. So in 1999, just a few years later, Compaq bought the company for $307 million in cash. And from that, Elon Musk, with a 7% share of ownership, made $22 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So this kind of brings us to the era of eBay, which is exciting to me because I know we both love eBay. So after Zip2 is sold, Elon Musk co-founds with some other people X.com, which sounds like a porn site, but it's not a porn site. Not porn. It is an online payment company, kind of like an online bank, and it's the same one that eventually merged to become PayPal. So to fund this project, Musk invests a little of his own money. And remember, ownership is not the same as investment, but he is doing both here. He's a little bit owner, he's a little bit investor. And in combination with venture capital provided by the former Intuit CEO, Bill Harris, and a venture capital firm called Sequoia Capital, the company manages to start off with $25 million in assets. So Bill Harris was president and CEO of the company, and Elon was chairman of the company. And they had 15 staff members, including investment banker John Story, who was the executive vice president. Around this time, too, Elon Musk marries his first wife, who's a Canadian author named Justine, and they end up having a set of twins and a set of triplets. So starting out with 5 kids around this area. And X.com was just supposed to be like an online bank. Like, you know, you had an account, a checking account, whatever, you could pay people. So to get people to use it, they offered $20 to anyone who opened up a free online checking account. They also would give people loans, relied on the interest rates from the loans to fund the business. So within 2 months, they had 100,000 customers, which was a lot. However, it was hard to get more people to feel comfortable with banking. So they were kind of running out of potential customers. And soon it was also revealed that the X.com website had allowed like all this fraud to occur. So this Forbes columnist, Elizabeth Corcoran, talks about this and says, in January, X.com conceded that it had designed its system in a way that made it too easy to siphon other people's money into an X.com account from a traditional bank account. Half a dozen questionable transfers and the money was returned. But obviously consumer trust was totally shot. So in March 2000, like 2 months after this article was written by this woman, X.com merged with what would eventually be then called Confinity, which had been formed by Peter in 1999 as well.
Oh.
Do you know who he is?
Peter Thiel? Yeah, he's a big right-wing guy. Like, you know, when they talk about the new right, like he's the one who funded that like anti-woke festival and stuff. Like he's like, yeah, oh my gosh, Peter Thiel. That'd be a good app.
Okay, we should definitely do an app on that. I'd never heard of him before. It's really interesting.
Yeah, he's a big political guy. Right
so
wing.
Interesting. All of these guys, they're all coming up together, and I don't like it. So X.com had been running into problems, but you know, Confinity was bringing in 15,000 new clients a day because it was doing a peer-to-peer payment service. By April, Harris had left the company completely. He was like, I don't know about this merger. I don't like the management issues. But by June, X.com had expanded PayPal. Now it's called PayPal, right? To allow for transactions between businesses and consumers. And they would just levy like a 1.9% charge for each transaction, which also brought them more income. And eventually they allowed business to business transactions as well. So at this time, Musk was supposed to be like the CEO of PayPal, but nobody working with him liked him or was happy with him in that position. So he ended up like going on vacation. And while he was on vacation, the PayPal co-founders, especially led by Max Levchin, kind of pushed back against him. And the board ended up firing him while he was on vacay and made Thiel the new CEO. So Elon Musk to this day is like, that's what I get for going on vacation, which is maximum boy boss energy, right? I would say if you don't want to lose your company, learn to work with people a little better personally. But that's just me. So
yeah, it's probably because he was so like, everyone hated him so much. They're like, the only way we can fire this dude is when he is out of the office because he's too unbearable.
Right? That's what that tells me too. I'm like, damn, you do not get along with people. Okay. So by October, PayPal was servicing 4 million people and handling eBay transactions. And by March of 2001, they were operating in 26 different countries. By October 3rd of 2002, eBay had acquired PayPal for $1.5 billion, which was form of eBay stock. And Elon Musk himself received $165 million from the sale, which is just unhinged. This is so much fucking money, right? So I want to point out here how the myth of the self-made American capitalist is intersecting with wild and massive amounts of privilege. Despite Elon Musk telling us stories about sleeping on the couch of his first office apartment, We know that what's actually happening here is kind of like that pulp common people effect, right? Kind of, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. It's like when rich people cosplay as, us peasants.
Right. There's a line in the song Common People by Pulp that said, if you called your dad, he could stop it all. And I think that this is like a massive thing to point out. Elon struggled by choice, not by. He doesn't like his dad. His dad's an asshole for sure. But at the heart of all of the privilege, he has white supremacy, like plain and simple. And I get this, right? Like, I'm white. I benefit from white supremacy too. In this case, though, his family like directly benefited from apartheid in like Africa, South Africa, and regions near it, even as his father said that he opposed it since it allowed them to remain in a dominant power structure and acquire massive amounts of wealth. His mother benefited from white supremacy too, even if she was, also a victim of domestic abuse, which I don't want to downplay. But she did have like the pretty privilege, right? Her proximity to the European beauty standard allowed her to work as a model, which is an option not afforded to many single moms of color who struggle due to systemic racism in the modeling industry. That's just not as available. And Elon himself benefited from his dad's money invested into his first company, his parents' ability to buy him a computer at a really early stage, his training, just dealing with people who are in this upper echelon of society, which he saw in his years as a teenager, like in the super, super wealthy area he lived in. And also just like helping his father sell Fifth Avenue, or at Tiffany's on Fifth Avenue, rather. Like, if capitalism is a board game and we all start at different places on the board, I feel like Elon Musk tries to started on like Vermont Avenue. And I don't think he started on Boardwalk, but I think he definitely started on Park Place,
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is that what I see through all of this is how unreliable he is as his own life. Like the $100,000 of student loan debt for 2 years at a college that in the 90s in the United States, it doesn't really make sense to me, right? Like $36K is what it would probably be. He still claims on his Twitter that his father never owned an emerald mine, which I'm just like, okay, why would your dad just make that up with details? He also says, Zip2, the first business, had no financing. His dad's saying he financed it in full. And I guess it's possible that his dad is the one lying. We know his dad's not a great person, but it just seems too specific and not worthwhile enough for him to make it up. So this all kind of brings us to the Elon Musk I think we're more familiar with today, Mr. Elon Musk and all his many businesses by now. So, you touched on this earlier. Like, he's got some businesses. He's got SpaceX. He's got Tesla. He's got all sorts of shit going on.
Yeah, those are the only two that I know of. But I feel like when you're that rich, you basically just make money off the money.
Yeah, exactly. SpaceX and Tesla are definitely the two most well-known. So in 2002, Elon founded SpaceX and also acted as chief investor by putting $100 million of the money he received from the PayPal sale into the company. So one of the first space vessels he ever made, he called Puff the Magic Dragon, which is a reference to that cyborg dragon comment he made that we did in our little quiz about if he said it or an evil genius said it. Yeah. And the whole weird goal of SpaceX, do you know what it is?
Is it to colonize Mars?
Yes, it is definitely 100% just colonizing Mars.
Shit. Wow. Okay, because I've had this thought since I was like, I don't know, like a tween or maybe even a child, that I'm like, do rich people just want to get off Earth and have their own planet, or get everyone else off the planet so they can just have Earth to themselves? And also, why do people believe that if rich people left the Earth, that they would be able to be on that ship unless they were also very rich? But
right?
I digress.
Yeah, you'd be leaving us. It's very like dystopian evil villain of him, this whole colonizing Mars thing to me. Like, he truly thinks that for humanity to survive, we have to become a multi-planet species. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if it's because capitalism is killing Earth. Like, well, yeah. You say this. Like, what are you just going to do? Capitalism in space and kill that too?
Yeah, well, it's just like it's like oh, well, instead of like fixing the earth, it's just garbage. So now we just need another place, because basically that's like capitalism is you use something up until it's trash, basically, and then you find another resource to use until it's gone. It's not about maintaining the resources that you have,
Right.
and it's about exploiting the resources that
Yeah.
you have.
And consuming.
Yeah, and it's like, why don't fix Earth, bro? Why don't fix the Earth before you
Well,
go fuck up Mars?
yes. So Elon Musk actually also has delusions that he's fixing Earth too. Like that's what like kind of Tesla's all about. Like
Mm.
in 2004, he started buying in pretty aggressively. And Tesla's an electric car company that was founded by Martin Eberhard. So Elon Musk sees Tesla. He's like, I like it. And he starts buying, he buys like $70 million worth of Tesla stock. And by 2007, he'd still been like buying stock. To stage a boardroom coup at Tesla. It was a hostile takeover. He bought so much that he became the primary shareholder. Therefore, he was, the one calling all the shots. And he ousted Eberhard from his CEO seat in this hostile takeover, and then from the company's board and executive suites entirely. So,
Wow.
yeah, he did not found Tesla. He bought it against everybody's wishes.
That's some like, oh God, who was that guy who like did General Motors in like the 80s? And
Oh,
like,
no.
or like Charles Icahn, like all those like 80, it's like, you remember in the 80s how there'd be like hostile takeovers, and these like CEOs were like revered, and then later now it's just really all those CEOs did was fuck up their companies down the line. But
Yeah.
like that's some like 80s, like, like I always think of like in 80s movies, like the villain is always like the rich teen boy in like a polo and like playing tennis, and I'm like, this is like he just reminds me of an 80s villain.
He
Like the
totally
hostile
is.
takeover
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So, okay, his timing, though, in doing this was bad because what happened the next year? What happened in 2008?
Oh, the recession.
Yeah. Yeah. It was bad. It was a bad year for Muskie. Tesla was set to go bankrupt. Musk invested $40 million of his own money into Tesla and then also loaned $40 million to the company on top of that. This is the year he officially became CEO, but he literally is like, this was the worst year of my life. Tesla kept losing money. SpaceX was running into trouble. And by 2009, Elon Musk was living off of personal loans just to survive. And
Wow.
this is the thing about like these boy boss business boys. They're all gambling, right? They're gambling. They're investing their own money, hoping it pays off. And they expect their workers to feel bad for them because they took the risk. And it's like, well, nobody told you to do that, bro. You gambled because you're trying to hit the jackpot. And that's all on you. So
Yeah.
this same year, he and his wife Justine file for divorce, and he starts dating actress Tallulah Riley. And at the end of 2008, SpaceX was saved because they had a $5 billion contract with NASA to deliver supplies into space. And Tesla also had found more outside investment, and he managed to keep both companies afloat. So by June of 2010, Tesla had a successful IPO, which is an initial public offering of stock sold. And they were the first car company to be publicly traded on the stock market since Ford in 1956. And at this time, Elon Musk sold around $15 million worth of his own stock with the IPO, with the offering, because he had been so struggling for cash. So by 2015, SpaceX had made 24 launches on assignments like resupplying the International Space Station. And SpaceX also, though, was doing like some weird, stupid shit. Like they had just become this weird, excessive thing. Like in 2008, like during the recession, actually, I don't know how they landed this. Maybe it's 2018. I think it was a typo. I think 2018. They launched a rocket carrying a Tesla into the orbit of Mars. Do you remember this?
No.
Wait, I'm gonna look at the year. I want to confirm this. Tesla into space.
I don't know why I think this is so funny.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
You're
It was
gonna launch a car into space.
It was February of 2018, and to be fair, they did put the car inside of a rocket. So it's a rocket carrying a Tesla.
Why? Why?
Okay, also they like specified when describing this that it was a cherry red Tesla, which like I'm like, are you trying to make it sound sexy? Like it's just ridiculous. It's just so weird.
They're trying to they're trying to pick up Mars. Like,
yes, they are.
The game? I feel like I'm being trolled right now.
Yes, Elon Musk tried to seduce Mars with a cherry red Tesla that he launched into space.
I'm sorry, bro. You can't fuck Mars.
You cannot fuck Mars, but he does want to nuke Mars. So, you know, he's got some conflicting views.
You know, it seems par for the course here.
I know.
Like, right? I just love how people like this, who have such, like, quote unquote, seemingly strong viewpoints, when you dig deep, they're actually completely incoherent.
Oh my God. We're going to get to that later. He is so incoherent with his thoughts. I cannot wait to share more of that. First, though, there is like another thing that happened. And I feel like this is really the time when Elon Musk started to like enter the cultural zeitgeist more, was like around 2018. This is also around the same time that he went on Twitter and said that he was considering making Tesla private at $420 a share.
And he got in huge trouble for that.
Yeah, the SEC sued him. They were like, you made false statements. He had to pay a $20 million fine and agree to step down as chairman of Tesla's board. And Tesla is required to appoint a committee to oversee his communication now.
Whoa.
And one of the musky boy boss fanboys was like, was it worth it? And he was like, yeah, totally. To make a 420 joke. An adult man.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So some of the other companies he has going on, one of them, it's not like a proper company, but it's this thing called the Hyperloop. Have you heard of this?
Yes. So it's so stupid.
Yeah. So in 2013, Elon basically got annoyed that the California high-speed rail system he thought was going to cost too much money to make. So he instead was like, why don't we do this thing I designed called the Hyperloop, which is a pneumatic tube with a pod carrying 28 passengers, which can travel 760 miles per hour, which is nearly the speed of sound between Los Angeles and San Francisco. And we can launch a pod every 2 minutes. And this is really terrifying to me because obviously we've seen the news where Teslas are just self-driving themselves into walls and bursting into flames and murdering people. And I cannot imagine two pods traveling 760 miles per hour colliding into each other because Muskie Boy didn't do it right. You know?
Wait, wasn't there also like going to be cars could go through it too? There was some sort of like underground car thing?
This is a totally different thing.
Okay. So I was confused because I was just like, that, like, if it works, like, I'm not so mad at it. But what I'm really mad at is this should be public infrastructure, not privatized, leased out to companies like fucking Tesla. This should be and the government and people who use it should have control over it, not some weird wannabe Iron Man.
Exactly. But okay, so Musk is like, look, here's my great idea. Somebody should do this. And everyone's like, we're not fucking doing this. And he's like, well, if you guys don't do it by the time I have more free time, like I'm really busy with Tesla and SpaceX right now, but like maybe one day I will do it. So this is just like this weird idea he throws around, the Hyperloop. But I don't trust it because like, what have we actually seen Elon Musk do well? Like he made an online Yellow Pages and he started an online bank that ended up being sketchy and only survived because it merged with another online bank.
Yeah. To me, it's like he is not actually an entrepreneur. Like, or he is the ultimate entrepreneur the same way that like Donald Trump is. They're grifty salesmen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he did start SpaceX. That's the one company that like he started that he still runs, and they do build rocket ships, so that's pretty good. I could not build a rocket ship, but like the Tesla thing, I'm like, we see Teslas having malfunctions down here on Earth all the time. Like, I don't want to see what this guy does with a vehicle traveling 760 miles per hour here on Earth. Like,
oh yeah, like the people who couldn't get the doors open when their Tesla was on fire.
Yeah,
or story.
Like so many stories of the self-driving feature just killing people.
I mean, this is also, just going back to like we need to have more public transportation.
We need more public transportation. Okay, so the next thing, though, is the thing you were talking about where he wants cars to drive underground. It's called the Boring Company. So like you're boring a hole, you know? So in 2000,
You're boring me to death, Elon. No.
yes, exactly. So in 2016, the Boring Company was founded, and their goal was to dig a network of tunnels under cities for high-speed driving without traffic, which is also wild because like you should just invest in public infrastructure and then you wouldn't have like public transit infrastructure, then you wouldn't have traffic. But he's like, no, we're going to build tunnels for privatized fast traffic free travel. And he wanted to do this in LA, whatever. But in 2021, they did open their first tunnel for commercial use in Las Vegas, which I didn't know that happened.
Yeah. Okay. This is like a thing to me that like is a rich guy thing. It's just like we like it doesn't matter what happens to everybody else because who cares about traffic? We can just have our own rich guy traffic system. We
exactly.
Like it's like, but they're also using public resources. They're using like government roads. They think that they're like building something from themselves, but they are building it using everybody's resources.
Right. They're using the same infrastructure as all of us.
Yeah, they're using like that is what blows my mind about because this like just reeks of libertarian bullshit to me. When they're like, I can do it on my own. It's like you can't do shit on your own. Like you can't do shit on your own. Like what? Like it's just one day we're gonna have an episode on libertarianism and the town that got eaten by bears.
We really should. Yes. So okay, the next thing he did. Remember how you're talking about the consciousness thing? How he's obsessed with that?
Yes.
In 2017, he started a company called Neuralink, whose whole purpose is trying to build devices that can be implanted inside the human brain. Now,
what could go wrong?
Yeah, right. Have you ever seen the TV show Made for Love? It's on Showtime or HBO or something like that.
I have not.
Okay, I really like it. It's a sci-fi show, and it's about a woman who ends up married to like a megalomaniac billionaire who owns a tech company. And he basically keeps her locked inside like their tech hub forever. And it's like, we never need to leave. And his main goal, he implants a chip into her head so he can monitor all the time. But he's like, I want us to become one. So his goal is that they both get a chip implanted into their head and then they share a consciousness and merge. And it just, Neuralink reminds me of this 100%. Super, super creepy and wild.
Wow, that sounds like the ultimate domestic abuse is to take over someone's soul.
That's what the show is about. It Made for Love. It's very, I really like it. So, okay. And then of course, in April of 2022, like Kenna referenced at the beginning of the app, Elon Musk he got his sights set on Twitter, right? So he officially became Twitter's largest stakeholder. And I think he owns like 9.2% of the company or something like that. And he made an offer to just buy Twitter outright. And Twitter actually accepted the offer. It was $44 billion. They accepted it on April 25th, 2022. But then he like backed out of the deal because he was like, no, because you have bot accounts. And Twitter's like less than 5% of our users are bot accounts. And it just felt weird. And like he was like grasping at straws to get out of the deal. Like he said it, but didn't actually want to do it because he didn't think that they would be okay with it. And then they were like, okay, we called your bluff. And then he was like, actually, I don't want to. And he terminated the deal. And this whole thing was weird and super politically motivated because Elon Musk wants to be a free speech warrior. And he was mad that Twitter was cracking down on him. And it's just wild because it's like, bro, that's the hill you wanted to die on? Like you wanted people to be able to threaten each other with hate speech? Like what? So, you know, he's currently the richest man in the world. He's got a net worth of like $223 billion from the source that I pulled this out. Obviously, it changes every second. And it puts him ahead of Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and even Jeff Bezos. And when his net worth surpassed Jeff Bezos, he tweeted at Jeff Bezos an emoji of a silver medal, which is just a glimpse into how absolutely dystopian and deranged capitalism is. Like these men really do view it as a game. It's a dick measuring contest to see who can hoard the most wealth, and we are all just left to suffer while they do it. And this,
Jesus Christ.
Right? And this kind of brings us to the whole issue. Like, what's the problem with Elon Musk? Like, What's wrong with them? And there's a lot of things that kind of go on here. Like the billionaire thing, for starters, that's pretty major, right? Like some of the richest men on the planet, including Musk, they pay hardly anything in taxes. Like ProPublica, citing confidential IRS data it obtained on thousands of wealthy people, reported that the 25 richest Americans saw their worth rise a collective $401 billion from 2014 to 2018. But those people paid a total of just $13.6 billion in federal income taxes for those 5 years, which amounts to a true tax rate for the uber wealthy of only 3.4%.
What?
My
I
tax
feel like,
rate, what was your tax rate last year?
I mean, I feel like 25 to 30% of my paycheck is taken out with taxes, right?
Me too. Yeah, it's between 25 and 30%, and that includes our 13% state income taxes to California. The median U.S. household in recent years $70,000 annually, and they paid 14% to federal taxes alone. And couples in the highest income tax bracket paid a rate of 37% on earnings higher than $628,000 per year, which is a lot of money. But yeah, most people in the cheapest tax states are paying 14%, which is still like almost 5 times what these rich guys are paying, these fuckers. And
yeah.
they pointed out that billionaires, unlike most other people who conventional wage income, they often benefit from tax avoidance strategies beyond the reach of ordinary people. And in 2018, Elon Musk, the same year that they were launching the cherry red so that the car could fuck Mars or whatever, Elon Musk paid no federal income taxes at all, even though his actual taxable income was $1.52 billion during the period. And Tesla's production workers earn on average $20.57 per hour, or around $42,785 per year. Elon Musk, for reference, earns 85 minutes. He earns $2 billion per year currently, or $6.2 million per day, which would be an hourly wage of over $250,000. $260,000 per hour is what he earns. And that's all earned while denying workers at places like Tesla a living wage of their own. In October 2021, there were 745 American billionaires, and around 11.5% of the population below the poverty line. During the pandemic, the collective fortunes of those billionaires went up by over $2 trillion. And that's all while there's not a single state in the U.S. in which a $15 wage worker, which is over double the minimum wage in minimum, able to afford to rent a 2-bedroom apartment, are hoarding money. 1% paid just 0.5% more in taxes. We could educate all 262 million children who are currently out of school and provide healthcare to save the lives of 3. Instead, people like Elon Musk have a net worth of $223 billion. And if he just had $1 billion instead, which is still way more than he would ever need to live, $222 billion could end hunger in the U.S. for 10 years. Currently, 8 million people in the U.S. are food insecure, and 2% of Elon Musk's net worth could solve world hunger. Meanwhile, Elon Musk said that thing that we talked about earlier, where if the UN could show him a plan to end world hunger with $6 billion, he would give it to them. Plan, and he just kind of didn't do it and hoped everyone forgot about it. And that kind of brings us to the thing I like least about him, which is that he just like lies a lot, but in weird ways. So he often talks about, for example, how his salary at Tesla is just $1 per year. However, salary isn't the only component in his compensation package. In 2018, his actual compensation package was $3 billion, according to the New York Times. And I think this is the unique thing that goes back to the idea of how trustworthy of a narrator Elon Musk is in his own life. Like, I don't think he's that trustworthy, and I don't think we can trust what he says. That same year, he was really going ham on Twitter, saying all sorts of weird shit. He also said he was going to sell off all of his real estate and own no house. And at the time, he had a substantial real estate portfolio, and he has since sold a lot of it off. He claims to rent a $50,000 near SpaceX headquarters. However, SpaceX owns the house, and he rents it from SpaceX. And people report that actually most of the time he's not living there at all. he lives in a luxury mansion in Austin that's owned by a really rich friend of his named Ken Howery, which is just like, nobody told you don't have to lie about that. Why did you lie about that? That seems like a really weird thing to lie about. And then, meanwhile, Grimes said that when they were together, they lived in a very insecure house worth $40,000, which I assume might be the same house, just like pretending to be poor. She said he had a mattress with a hole in it and wouldn't buy a new one. Their house had no security, and she ate peanut butter for 8 days in a row. And it just reminds me of his assessment of the time he spent at the office at Zip 2. It's performative, and it plays into this masochistic idea of suffering for your work, all to play up the idea that the more you sacrifice, the more deserving you are, and maybe that's why he has so much money, because he just sacrifices so much. In reality, though, he has so much money because his rich dad funded his first company, and he was a white guy that other white guys trusted, and most of his success came from buying companies other people had founded, sometimes in hostile ways. So the Grimes thing, we know in 2020, Grimes and Elon had their first of 2 babies together. And currently, he and Grimes have a relationship they call very fluid, and they plan on having more children. In May of 2022, though, a flight attendant for SpaceX was paid $250,000 to settle a sexual misconduct claim against Musk. The flight attendant said that Musk exposed himself to her during a massage. He, of course, has denied any wrongdoing and told Insider, like, there's a lot more to this story. They didn't say what it was. And to me, it just kind of sounds like with all the baby making all over the place and the creepy stuff he's doing, he's following in his dad's creepy footsteps. And to really showcase that, in July of 2022, it was reported that he had twins with one of his top executives at Neuralink, Siobhan Zillis, last November. Much like his father, he has said that procreating is his duty. He says there's an underpopulation crisis and he is just doing his part, which is super gross, right?
That also, to me, reeks of like the great replacement theory.
Yeah.
It really reeks of like white supremacy stuff, like in a really icky way. Like people who are like, I'm the type of person who needs to procreate. And you know what that says? In his mind, he's like, there are people who should not procreate.
Right.
And you're like, gee, I wonder who those fucking people are.
Yeah, that's a really good point that I hadn't even considered that component of it, but it's so true. Everything comes down to eugenics. Everything.
Yeah, and like to me, it's like, okay, there's this like TikTok that I saw about like, they're all this guy was like, you go onto like financial TikTok for one moment and you see all these guys, and as soon as they're like, yeah, your investment, and then all these women, these whores want to take it from you, like start saying like wild misogynistic shit. Like to me, it's just like there is a very easy bridge from capitalism to misogyny to racism to eugenics to like they're part of the same like country, if you will. They live in the same region.
It's a culture of domination. That's what it is. It's like,
yeah,
the world is here for you to dominate in every way you possibly can because you're a winner,
And who are the winners? It's like, oh, white men.
White men, yeah.
White cis men.
So another interesting thing that Musk was doing on Twitter, he's always on Twitter doing weird shit. In 2018, he like outed himself as a weird COVID denier. Do you remember this?
No, I remember like these people who are like, I'm not even going to get into it because I'll just go off.
So all through like 2019, 2020, I mean, like just the whole pandemic, he's been tweeting that panic over the virus is dumb. The U.S. asking people to shelter in place is fascist. And he got so mad at California for endorsing COVID lockdowns that's when he moved to Texas. And he was like, nah, I'm going to Texas where they'll let us ignore COVID. And he says his current goal now is to create a city in Texas around SpaceX called Starbase. So he's really just trying to form his own weird city now.
Yeah, and then you can only get paid in Tesla bucks. And you can only spend them at SpaceX store.
I'm like, we did that. It's the company store. I'm surprised that's even legal. I don't feel like that should be legal anymore.
Yeah, I feel like your company should not own your housing. Like,
no way.
I think like the bare bottom floor minimum of like housing in the United States is like your employer should not own your home.
Yeah, I mean, I think like no company should own a home. That would be like a really good first way to start, I think.
Yeah, just like the bare minimum.
Yeah, sure. Commercial business, you can only own commercial real estate. That's like the bare minimum. Um, so whatever. So also on Twitter in 2020, he got into some transphobia tweets. Do you remember this? He tweeted pronouns suck. Like,
Oh, oh yeah. Isn't he also like buddies with like Dave Chappelle?
oh, I don't know, but that would honestly make sense.
Yeah, there's like this like famous photo of like him and Grimes and Dave Chappelle, like pretty like peak COVID, like, no mask.
Yeah. So he tweeted pronouns suck, right? And it's a weird take because obviously he's not an idiot. Like he knows pronouns are just a part of language, and without them, you would have to use the names of things all the time. So without any pronouns, he would have to talk about himself in the second person every single time he spoke, since I is a pronoun. So he'd have to be like, Elon loves Twitter. Elon loves money. Elon hates pronouns, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I also thought it was strange because I think Grimes goes by she or they.
Well, that's like an interesting thing, which I'll get into in a second.
Oh.
But it definitely was directed at Grimes and their first child. That's why he tweeted it. But yeah, I think like the
Oh.
world without pronouns is like the weird future libertarian billionaires want, right? They just want everybody
But
to talk
they
second person about.
but they don't want you to talk in second person. It is just blatant transphobia that they
Yeah,
just don't want to say. Like it's blatant like homophobia, transphobia. But they
yeah,
like they couch it in these terms of like pronouns are making you speak weird. And it's like, no, you get it. Don't act stupid. You
right.
believe in pronouns.
So the thing about Grimes, Grimes has said her gender is female-ish, which I assume she means woman-ish, right? And Grimes identifies as gender neutral, leaning towards feminine. Grimes has also said, I am impartial to pronouns for myself, but does wish that I didn't have to be categorized as female constantly. So when I talk about Grimes, based on all this, because we don't have anything clear to go off of, I usually say she and sometimes say they. Um, and I think that is everything I can make sense of here since it's left to us. I am also a person where I'm like, I don't care what pronouns people use. So, that's what I'm going off of. But Grimes definitely is like not a super binary gender person. And, that like assuming in good faith, she, they are the probably best pronouns to use, but whatever. So there's been no formal announcement, but after Grimes' first child was born with Musk, Grimes did decide not to assign the baby a gender until the child was old enough to choose a gender identity for themselves. And Grimes said, I don't want to gender them in case that's not how they feel in their life. And Musk, of course, violated this by telling the world their child was a boy on Twitter instantly. He also said social media accounts displaying pronouns were an aesthetic nightmare. And the Human Rights Campaign had to demand an apology from him after he posted a meme deriding users who put their pronouns in their social media bios. So for somebody obsessed with freedom, it seems weird that Elon Musk is like so people's pronoun usage. Like he literally calls himself a free speech absolutist. That's what he calls himself. And like I don't care about free speech at all, but if he does, it should be a two-way street, right? People should be able to say whatever the fuck they want in their fucking social media bios. And if it includes the pronouns they want people to use for them, like more power to them. It's just very, and that's kind of like the weird lie thing where I'm like, you're not a free speech absolutist because you don't want these people doing this thing, which is just doesn't concern you and it's just weird.
Yeah, I feel like people who say they're for free speech just want to say racist and homophobic shit.
Exactly. Yes.
They just want to say like misogynistic stuff. They want to say all the bad words and people and just be like, "Hey, it," and like but have no culpability because they're like, "It's not me, it's the free speech." So they don't really believe in free speech because otherwise they wouldn't be passing all this like anti-CRT, anti-trans bills. Like
Right.
it's obviously
Exactly.
just a fake. So it's like
Totally
they're
is.
not. And also like this is like can go longer, but like we don't have 100% absolute free speech. That is a myth.
Right. We don't. And actually, I do not care about free speech at all. I don't think you should be able to say things that endanger people. That's not something I really care about. I don't, that's not helping people. I don't care about it. But, some people do. that he's so inconsistent. Like, if your whole thing is like live and let live, like, damn, let people fucking live, man, and respect your partner. Whatever pronouns Grimes like uses or is more comfortable with, which, you know, again, the quote from them, what they said is, I am impartial to pronouns. So I feel like it's just anything we want to use, you know, but like, it is sad. It's sad. Like, Grimes was in a relationship with someone who doesn't respect their like core identity.
Yeah, well, obviously, like, Elon Musk is like, even though like we're like, at first we're like, you know, we're like, this is like incoherent, like it doesn't make sense. Like, it does make sense. Like, conservatism, or like whatever you want to call that, is just about domination by any means necessary, and that includes confusing people. And because,
Yes.
like, if you just straight out said the shit, a lot of people would be like not on board for it.
Right. And that's another thing about him too, politically. He's always like, I'm a libertarian. I go in between parties. I don't support anybody. But he gives money to Democrats. He gives money to Republicans. He does it in this way that's really like inconsistent and incoherent. But what you really see is he just gives money to whoever financially benefits him that month. And it's confusing, but it's simple. He just goes to the people who keep him rich.
Well, also, like, to me, what a very clever tactic for staying in power. I remember watching this documentary about, I forget, I believe it was in Russia, but some like politician who was like, we fund the far right, we fund the far left, we fund everybody in the middle, because you know what? It sows confusion between everybody. And then while they're all busy infighting, while we're funding all the sides, we're just making our own rules.
Dang, that's pretty interesting.
So, yeah, it's a confusion tactic. Like, that's what, to me, it's just like, oh, that's so smart.
Yeah. Okay. So this other thing I thought was interesting that ties in with that idea of domination, and also ties back to like his father, how his father was like this super abusive figure that nobody liked. This one former Tesla executive told Quartz magazine, everyone at Tesla is in an abusive relationship with Elon.
Ugh.
Really was a statement about the work culture at the businesses he runs. And there's a lot of stuff here that I think is like really interesting and important to talk about. Like, the first thing is that Elon Musk doesn't have a business plan or any plan when running a company. He just kind of, he said that. He's like, I don't really have a business plan. I had a business plan way back in the Zip 2 days, but these things are always wrong. So I just don't bother with business plans after that, which is fine. But also, it's like he's running really, really large companies just on his own, from his own whims. So the New York Times explained this, and they said, look, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, they make long-term plans and manage their affairs through a corporate machinery of lawyers, communications professionals, and advisors. Musk, though, operates unlike any of them. To a degree, in any other mogul, the entrepreneur acts on whim, fancy, and the certainty that he is 100% right, according to interviews with more than 30 current and former employees, investors, and others who have worked with him. So the way he works is he like identifies a key project and calls it a critical path, and then he just kind of takes over and micromanages every element of the company to achieve that one goal that he set. But the micromanagement and like singular focus creates a super toxic workplace where abuse is rampant. So the National Labor Relations Board, which is an independent government agency that's tasked with enforcing U.S. labor laws, has filed official complaints against Tesla to accompany claims that Tesla staff has been found to be intimidating and harassing employees. Tesla security stops employees from posting and passing out flyers concerning unionization, and also interrogates and threatens workers with termination if they unionize, and that's all obviously super elite. Tesla has also come under fire for making workers sign broad, sweeping confidentiality agreements that just like are way too much overstep. And in total, the National Labor Board filed 4 charges against the company. And before this, Tesla also dealt with worker complaints about low pay, unsafe conditions, and other violations of labor rights. According to The Guardian, at the Tesla plant in Fremont, ambulances were called more than 100 times since 2014 for workers experiencing fainting spells, seizures, abnormal breathing, and chest pains. And for lesser injuries and medical issues, hundreds more were called. While Musk is the richest man in the world, he said about these labor violations in 2017, we're a money-losing company. This is not some situation where we're just greedy capitalists who decided to skimp on safety in order to have more profits and dividends. It's just a question of how much money we lose and how do we survive. How do we not die and have everyone lose their jobs? And this is super manipulative, right? Because obviously we know Musk is and has always been a greedy capitalist, self-assessed, self-professed since his teenage days, selling melted chocolate eggs door to door, right? Meanwhile, in 2016, one Tesla employee, Jose Moran, said that workers are often faced with excessive mandatory overtime and earn just $17 to $21 an hour, compared with the national average of $25 an hour for most auto workers in the US. Moran also noted that in the Bay Area, where the Fremont plant is located, $21 an hour is not enough to live off of. A living wage in the Bay Area is considered to be more like $45 an hour. And in the Guardian article, 15 factory workers told journalists about a culture of long hours under intense pressure, sometimes working through injury in order to fulfill the CEO's ambitious production goals. One Tesla production technician, Jonathan Galascu, said, "I've seen people pass out, hit the floor like a pancake, and smash their face open, and they just send us to work around him while he's still laying on the floor." Mikey Coutura, a worker on the battery pack line at Tesla, said, "We had an associate on my line. He just kept working, kept working, kept working. Next thing you know, he just fell on the ground." Michael Sanchez was ecstatic to originally to get hired at Tesla in 2012, but he ended up with 2 herniated discs in his neck, on disability leave from work, no longer able to even grip a pencil without pain. Tesla said that his injury occurred while he was installing a wheel, but he said it was actually caused by years he spent working the assembly line, holding his hands over his head because they didn't make accommodations for him to properly do his job. He said, "You can make it through Monday. You can make it through Tuesday. Come Wednesday, you start to feel some pain. Friday is agonizing. Saturday, you're just making it through the day." Because, they got to work all these super long overtime. So Sanchez says that when he reported the pain, management responded by saying, "We all hurt. You can't man up." And as The Guardian explains, if workers are assigned to light duty because of an injury, they're paid a lower wage and they get supplemental benefits from workers' compensation insurance, a practice that Tesla said is in line with employers in California law. Tesla said some injured employees are also able to undertake modified work on regular pay. But one production worker said, "I went from making $22 an hour to $10 an hour after injuring his back twice while working at Tesla. It kind of forces people to go back to work. No one wants to cut pay because they're injured, so everyone just forces themselves to work through it." And that was something that Adam Suarez added, who'd worked at the factory for about 3 years. A worker said that the main problem, people at the top, like Musk, were setting unrealistic goals. Lately, Musk has expressed hostility to the idea of remote work and also demanded that executives spend at least 40 hours per week at the office, and floated the idea of firing 10% of Tesla's workforce because he had a super bad feeling about the direction of the economy. And Forbes reports that at the same time, Tesla continues to lead all car makers in workplace safety violations, racking up more infractions and fines in the past 3 years than all other automakers in the US combined. Since March 1st, 2019, when Forbes reported that Musk's company had been slapped with more violations and fines under occupational safety and health administration rules than any other auto company in the US, Tesla has been cited 29 more times since then for infractions at its US facilities, including 22 at manufacturing operations in California and Nevada. The Austin, Texas-based company's infractions resulted in nearly $400,000 in federal fines. Sam Abuelsamid, who's an auto industry analyst for Guidehouse and senior contributor to Forbes and a former Ford engineer, says his goal seems to be to churn out as many cars as he possibly can. The condition of the employees be damned. Tesla is also being sued by California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing for racism and harassment towards Black employees at the Fremont plant, where workers said they were subjected to offensive racist comments and behavior by colleagues, managers, and human resources employees on a regular basis. The harassment included using the N-word at work and using terms like slavery or plantation, and also making sexual comments like likes boob at Black workers. One plaintiff said that they were told, "It is rare for Blacks to work here. I don't know how long you'll be able to stay," which is just terrifying. The company is also contending with suits brought by several women claiming they experienced sexual harassment while working at the Fremont plant. Musk says, "We're doing this because we believe in a sustainable energy future, trying to accelerate the advent of clean transport and clean energy production, not because we think this is a way to get rich." Okay, so but this is the point where you're like, well, you're lying again. You don't care about the fucking planet. And this is why. He talks all this big game about a clean energy future, right? But he has all these quotes about it too that don't match up with his actions. So I'm going to read you some quotes Elon Musk has said about how much he fucking cares about the environment. He once said, "We're running the most dangerous experiment in history right now, which is to see how much carbon dioxide the atmosphere can handle before there's an environmental catastrophe." He also once said, "Burning oil is like taking furniture from your house and setting it on fire for heat." And we must achieve a sustainable energy economy or we will run out of fossil fuels to burn and civilization will collapse. And we need to put the correct price on carbon because we currently have an error in the economy which misprices carbon at zero. So all of this combined with this simple way of life, you might think like, oh, Elon Musk is just an eccentric billionaire who cares so much about the planet. But for all of this talk about moving to an electric future and being super conscious of carbon dioxide, his private jet logged 150,000 miles of travel in 2018, which is a lot more than any other billionaires even. And a lot of these were 20-mile trips from the south side of Los Angeles to the north side.
Oh my gosh, that's like the Kylie Jenner thing where she took a 3-minute flight.
That.
Oh, it was on TikTok.
Oh my God, I did not hear about that. But his defense, Tesla's like, well, he never just flew the plane around LA. We just flew the plane to meet him at a closer airport, which means that they flew it from LAX to Burbank Airport, so he wouldn't have to travel so far.
Wait, that's not even that. I mean, it sucks in traffic, but it's not even that far.
No. And according to the Post, the 150,000 miles that Musk's jet flew that year represents roughly 250 regular commercial flights in terms of the fuel use. And Musk made 100 more flights that year than even Jeff Bezos did. So there's this Twitter account called Elon Jet that tracks this, and Elon tried to bribe the person who runs it into shutting it down by offering them $5,000. But they declined, and on May 8th of this year, Elon Jet revealed that Elon Musk took a 9-minute flight from San Jose to San Francisco, which is around 45 drive. In February, wow. One of his flights used 424 gallons of jet fuel and emitted 4.48 tons of carbon dioxide just to take a 39-minute flight in Texas.
Jeez.
So what does this say about Elon Musk? Like, what are we to make of all of this? Like, I think the most obvious thing is that he's a lot more like his creepy, weird dad than he would probably like to believe. Like, he might not be shooting people who break into his house, but in lots of ways, he's still shoving dollar bills into a safe so full that it won't close, all while impregnating people left and right and being super abusive to everybody around him. Like, yeah. I just can't see him as a visionary like people claim.
He's abusing America and he's trying to fuck Mars.
Yes, right? He's a byproduct of a broken system of capitalism and colonialism that puts too much power in the hands of white men, all while giving them the opportunity to pretend like they worked hard for it.
Yeah, it's like, it's not an individual story, like, where, like, he himself, like, John Galt style, like, with his own prowess, like, built himself up. It's like, no, he is also a product of a system, a fucked up system, but he nonetheless is a product of the system. It's funny because, like, I tend to want to go into, like, this philosophical thing, like, how much free will do we actually have? But, like, really, he is, like, basically, he benefited from his white privilege, being born in South Africa with wealthy parents. Like, he won, like, the lottery of being born. Like, that thought experiment, like, if you were like a baby and you were floating around the earth in a little bubble and you got to choose where you were going to be born, like, you would choose to be born in like rich parents in, like, the 1970s.
Yeah, totally.
Like, and also it's like, yeah, it's just like he won that lottery. He lucked out, like, all that tech stuff. You and I know people who just lucked out of money because they just happened to be in the right place at the right time, not because they're extra fucking smart. Like, totally, I guarantee true. There are so many more people who are better at business than he is. Like, so, but, like, but honestly, it's not about being good at business. Like, we can even get into like, whatever about that. It's like, he is a grifter salesman. And he's a perfect grifter salesman because he is a rich white guy.
Right. People believe him. They want him. I think like the thing that's interesting to me is that he represents the myth of the American dream like perfectly. He pretends like he's a self-made man who struggled for everything he has, right? He tells us these stories about him sleeping bags on the concrete floor of the Tesla factory to show his workers he's just as committed as them. But at the end of the day, like, he's just some kind of creepy dude who got handed life on a silver platter.
I have another story about someone who I shall not name, but
Uh-huh.
you know who is just like, they sleep on their factory floor. They work so hard. And I'm like, but they are a creep who owns this business. And they were rich to
Yes.
begin with. Like,
Right.
it's
Nobody
so,
should be sleeping here. That's weird. Nobody should be sleeping here.
same with like, okay, I'm also gonna say, because like, I listened to the whole like Elizabeth Holmes podcast,
Yes.
and it was like very similar how like she came from a pretty privileged like upbringing. She, like, because she wanted to follow the playbook of like, oh, who's the guy, Steve Jobs.
Oh,
And she
yeah.
even got this, where it's just like, she was sleeping in her office, she was, working 80 plus hours a week. But to me, it's so funny how she ultimately got brought down for that behavior. Like, she was like convicted of running a scam, where I'm just like, seems to me like this Tesla, Twitter, like a lot of these businesses are actually scams, but they're like legal scams. But somehow her scam wasn't legal.
Right. It's very like Silicon Valley. Did you ever watch that show?
No, it's really hard for me because I really just hate like tech bro culture. Like, even if it's making fun of it, I'm just like, oh, I can't think about it.
I think it's infuriating because it's like I know a lot of people who worked in San Francisco when tech was really starting to take off there in the early 2000s. And when you watch Silicon Valley, like, oh, I know it's like satire, not a stretch. It's like pretty accurate, and it just really it's like, yeah, it is. It's infuriating. It's entertaining but infuriating because you're like, this actually is what's happening. And it's super fucking frustrating.
Yeah, in a way, like, I used to be really like hustle culture, where I was just like, I just need to work like 80 hours a week, and then my business will, take off. Like, and you know what? Like, I wish that there was somebody when I was younger being like, you know what? That shit does not matter. That shit will not make you successful. It will not make you happy. Like, it might not work out. Like, your life is worth more than working and being successful. And it really is, like, even though like, I think like you and I are pretty like countercultural, grew up like pretty like DIY punk, like, god, whatever you want to call it. Like, but I personally have still like internalized a lot of like, you have to be successful or you have to, for people to take you seriously at all, or for life to be good. Like, you can live a good life without being quote unquote conventionally successful. And what does that even look like? To me, like, probably like my old version of success would be like, you know, I make at least a six-figure salary, I drive a nice car, like, I do like interesting creative projects that people would like, like, I like, in a way I was like, I just want to show that like I'm not just like a normal person, so you have to treat me more nicely. When like,
Aw.
like, I
Yeah.
think like sometimes like people think like perfectionism is about, you want to be better than other people. But I think like for me it was like, I had been bullied so much as a kid, where I was just like, I just want to be like respected, and like if you like go over and beyond, people will at least like respect you. Like, even if they don't respect you for anything else in America, they'll be like, well, she's a hard worker, you know? But
Yeah,
like, to
that's
me,
really
like,
interesting.
real like success is like, to me, first of all, if you take it out of a capitalistic mindset, like, to me success is being alive.
Yeah,
To me,
survival.
and like, or like thriving. Like, and just, or being able to thrive in a situation that is not ideal, and like having those, being able to appreciate those little moments of joy in the capitalistic hellscape, you know?
Yeah, that's like the best we can do. I do think the insight's really interesting because like Elon Musk was obviously bullied a lot growing up, and it's like, yeah, maybe the psyche of these people is they really have something to prove, but that's like the idea of like the cartoon supervillain. Like, okay, that's your villain origin story, but like, why do we all have to suffer because of it? You
Yeah,
know?
well, it's a lot of people who, it's important, a lot of people who are abused become abusers. And this seems to be a really sad reflection of that, because it seems like he's obviously abusive to his workers, he's abusive to his partners. Like, he's like abusing like a monetary system. He's like, to me, providing services. He's abusing the system. Like, it's all cycles of abuse and domination, and it really is like, you know, it's like, it's, I think sometimes it's hard to see that you are in the cycle of that and hard to break it, you know.
Yeah, for
And I think the reason we were talking about Marvel earlier, and I love a lot of these like superhero things, because you a lot of times see these villain origin stories, and a lot of times they break that cycle of like being abusive, and it's always so heartbreaking to me, where you're just like, it's like the Sixth Sense, where you're like, instead of being like, oh my god, I'm the ghost, you're like, oh my god, I'm the asshole here.
yes. I think that's why you like Loki, because he does that sometimes.
Yeah, and it's just like, I just think that there is such an opportunity for people who like have this type of power to like look at it and just be like, wait, this is fucked up. And to go back to the Marvel thing, like, in like Iron Man, when like, no spoil, try not to do a spoiler alert, but like, at the end, he's like, I'm gonna stop building weapons, and I'm gonna like only do stuff for the good. And me, I'm like, why don't you go farther and be like, you know what? Money is bad.
Right.
And all of this stuff should be public good. Like, that would be the ultimate, like, he almost gets there where he's like, what I'm doing is wrong, but he thinks it's making weapons, and the actual thing that he's doing wrong is being a billionaire.
Yeah, that's interesting because when preparing for the role, he went and toured, I think Tesla or SpaceX, I can't remember what, and he based a lot of the character on Elon Musk.
Yeah, he's in one of those fucking movies. Like, I think he's in the second or third one.
He has like a cameo.
Yeah, and I'm just like, ooh. And like, that's the okay, this is why, I'm sorry, I like Loki and I fucking cannot stand Iron Man, because I think it's because, to me, like, Tony Stark, like, intellectually knows that, like, that the system of capitalism is wrong, yet refuses to step over the line, even though he has that power. Even though he
Right.
saw he sees that he saw the error of his ways, and didn't correct, he only corrected it like 50%.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing too about like Elon Musk's dad, like Errol Musk. He's like, well, I think apartheid is bad as long as those freedom fighters don't explode a bomb near my house and I don't have to lose my black servants, And you're like, what, bro?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I think the reason why there's been such a conservative backlash is because, really, when you start questioning all these things, a lot of the walls start tumbling down. Like, because you start questioning, something like LGBTQ plus rights, and then people are like looking at the nuclear family, which and then they're like, it goes further, and then it goes like through certain systems that are very ingrained that people don't even question, and are like, maybe this isn't so great,
Right. Totally. Yeah, it's like the whole system. I mean, it's everything we always talk about. Capitalism is fucked up. It creates these monsters within it. It gives us villains with villain origin stories. And yeah, I don't know. It gave us Elon Musk, who's trying to fuck Mars, apparently.
Yeah. Is it fucked up that I'm like, you could still become a commie, dude? Like, that's the ultimate end goal. Like, in my mind, like, I know it's like, I would like, I have no interest really in like, interacting with this person, but it's just like, you know, I still hold out hope that sometimes people who go this freakadelic will just go full to the other extreme and see the error of their ways, but I don't know.
He has some little things that you're like, I might be able to work with that, but I feel like it's like the Grimes thing where she did the whole photo shoot with like,
Communist.
You're like, what? What are you doing? Have you read that? Do you know what you're talking about? And then she's talking about AI, and she's like, well, Elon Musk is like actually not a bad person because he's trying to help the planet. And you're like, ma'am, do you follow Elon Jet on Twitter? Maybe you should. Like, I mean, or ma'am adjacent person, Grimes. I am sorry. I've done to you what I don't like when people do to me. But it's like, it's sad because she saw potential in him, and you look at her and you're like, well, she also came from like a pretty well-off family and cosplayed poor in her teenage years, according to accounts that I haven't super researched, but I've online, and you're like, I see why you guys got along. You're like the rebel rich kids in your own minds, but you still just perpetuate these systems of power. You're not actually rebelling. Like,
yeah, which is ultimately conservatism, because one of the core tenets of conservatism is that things cannot change and it is pointless to change them. And a lot of it is like, it's so funny to me because a lot of conservatism is that there is some idealized past that never existed. But for Elon Musk, there is an idealized future, that is not actually ideal for most people.
Right. It's very interesting. That's a really interesting observation. I mean, yeah, I feel like it's like maybe he's like so far removed from like actual subculture that he really does think just being like a billionaire who tweets 420 jokes is somehow actually revolutionary.
Yeah, it seems like just like, no diss on if you like Burning Man, but it's like when rich people go to Burning Man,
Right. To pretend like they don't have money. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, it's
interesting. Yeah. Well, that was our first episode we've ever done about a person, I think.
Yeah.
Kenna, do you have final thoughts on Elon Musk?
Don't try to fuck Mars, man. That's weird.
Leave Mars alone. She's not interested. Don't make babies with Mars. Okay, is that it?
I think so.
That's the episode. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Pick Me Up, I'm Scared. If you would like to follow us on Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/pickmeupimscared. And for $2 a month, you can get access to 2 bonus episodes. But if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine. And we're just happy you're here.